What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Martian and Ozzy podcast. This week, we're going to be analyzing the UFC 270 pay-per-view going down this Saturday, the first pay-per-view of the year 2022. I'm joined by my co-host, as always. How we doing this week, Ozzy?
Sweet. We're back one day early off a hot card last week, rolling right into the first pay-per-view event of the year. And we're gonna keep this UFC train going. There's the Bellator at the end of this month, but good to be in the flow of quality fights every week, and looking forward to this event. And definitely have some. I think there's good value over here on this card, but could be a little bit high variance too at the same time. And it's a little bit different than the setup of last week. But yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, only 10 fights last week. We breezed through that one pretty quickly. 13 fights in the pay-per-view, some better fights this week, so I expect this one to go a bit longer. But we got week one off to a great start in 2022. It was a pretty solid underdog card. 4 underdogs won. And for me personally, I made 2.13 units in my official track bets, so started off the year in the green. And Ozzy, you had yourself a pretty damn good week. How'd you do?
Very good. 8.69 units profit and up off of just over 12 and a half wrist. It was perfect night other than the Collier fight, ending early, even though I did have Collier money line, and then Bontarin giving away that decision kind of sort of there at the end. If Bontarin wins, sweep everything. I even, was feeling very good last week and did like a parlay, a few 50 to ones, 100 to ones that would have won if if Bonturn would have got that win. So a little crushing there, but really really good event overall. Bunch of dogs came through. Cater. Bill Algeo, obviously, I kind of advocated for him heavily. Court McGee, best bet of the first best bet of the year, and as well as Jamie Pickett. So very very good start. And we're not going to turtle this week. We're going to take some shots this week, and I think expand on this first month run.
Yeah, if you guys didn't already know, we're pretty big on the dog heavy strategy. Last week was a good week for the dogs. Like Ozzy said, our hometown guy Bill Algio came through. It was nice to see him get the win. Calvin Cater showed up amazing in the main event, put on an absolute clinic. Probably the most elbows ever landed in a UFC fight. There, it was just amazing to watch, and it was a very solid card to get back to the year. 4 weeks off UFC, we definitely missed it, and we're going to keep things rolling into this week. So we got ourselves 13 fights, and let's get right into them. And we're starting things off in the women's flyweight division. We have the first of 8 fighters making their UFC debut.
Flyweight or strawweight? It's
It's
strawweight, right?
flyweight. No, it's
They're at
flyweight.
125. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
That's according to Tapology. That is worth noting. So we have Kay Hansen minus 235, Jasmine Jasudavicius plus 200, according to Bet Online. I'll read all the lines off of Bet Online. And the reason why Ozzy was a bit confused there is because Kay Hansen did fight at strawweight for her past several fights. She's moving up to 125 here, and she's going to be at a bit of a size disadvantage. I mean, you could call it a huge size disadvantage. JJ has 5 inches of height, 5 inches of reach over Hansen, and I think that, right off the bat, I'm liking the plus 200 dog here. I rewatched some of her fights, CFFC. She's got wins, out grappling women. Her one and only loss to Elise Reed, let's be real, that wasn't a loss. She probably should have won all 3 rounds of that fight. And she knows how to pressure. She knows how to, get in close, and she gets into the clinch. She has some nice body lock takedowns, some nice trip takedowns. And right off the bat, I was seeing an advantage in the strength department and the clinch takedowns, because if you remember Kay Hansen's debut against Jinyu Fry, she really struggled taking Fry down, and Fry is a muscular 115-pound woman, and she was able to really, stuff all of Hansen's takedowns early on just due to strength, really. And I think Hansen just doesn't really have that great wrestling to go along with her jiu-jitsu. And I probably would give Hansen the striking advantage here. I probably would say that Hansen has the better open space takedowns of the two. But if this fight gets into the clinch, if they, grind against the cage, I think that's going to favor the bigger, stronger, more natural flyweight in Jasmine Jasudavicius. So I'm liking what I see from Jasmine. I think that this is going to be a back and forth grappling fight. Kay Hansen probably should have won her last fight against Corey McKenna, but she just let McKenna explode and reverse at very key times of the fight. You know how key the last 60 to 90 seconds of a round are, and Hansen let those rounds slip through her fingers. And that was a weak little Irish girl in McKenna at 115, and she's facing a big, strong taller Canadian woman here in Jasudavicius, and I like JJ here for a bet right off the bat. I got 1 unit on her at plus 205 odds. I just think plus 200 is crazy for what should be a competitive back and forth grappling fight. So I like JJ to get the win straight up.
Yeah, so I actually had got crossed up. I thought this was maybe a Demopoulus fight, so I was surprised when I heard it was fight weight. But yeah, man, I'd tend to agree. I lean towards agreeing. Just looking at the fight and what these girls both bring in, I think Kay's wrestling is a little bit better than you're giving her credit for. She's fought pretty good competition, is able to shoot multiple takedowns around if her opponent gets back up to her feet. So I've seen her just look pretty good in the second and third rounds. Her conditioning looks good. She has multiple third round finishes, and on the feet, she is a willing striker. I wouldn't say it's very technical. It's very technical, very technically sound, but she'll stay in the pocket. She'll throw back counters. And I think this is a much closer, probably a closer fight than these odds indicate. Jasmine did show that she slowed down in the second and third round of her contender series fight after having a pretty dominant first round. So, and we haven't really seen her too much on her back. Elise Reed did have her down for good stretches, but in the clinch, she does have some good clinch knees. She has some good elbows, some good Muay Thai in there, and she's not clueless on the ground. So I think it's a pretty interesting fight overall. I think at plus 200, I definitely would lean towards Jasmine, I would say. And yeah, we'll see who dictates the pace though, and where the fight takes place, because I could see it going a lot of different areas, and then that could bring some high variance in where Kay could hit one of those submissions that she's very well known for.
Yeah, I think if you're trying to play Hansen here, I'd rather take plus 450 on the sub than minus 235 money line. So we'll see if Hansen has any
And
improvement.
this is a hometown fight for Kay. She's from very, very close by to Anaheim. So
Interesting. I didn't know that. Let's see if she shows any improvements off the 15-month layoff. But that's going to move us to the next fight in the lightweight division. We have Matt Frevola minus 193, Geraldo Valdez plus 168. It's not Geraldo, it's Gennaro, excuse me. Sorry, Mr. Valdez. I know you're an avid listener, but another contender series guy making his debut here. You can start this one off, Ozzy.
yeah, so you got Frevola, a past contender series guy, I think from the first season, coming off that bad knockout loss. I just thought it was a just super bad game planning, and just to make yourself available to get knocked out in that fashion, with knowing who Terrence McKinney is, just pretty bad. But overall, Frivola's pretty well rounded. He's comes from that Sarah Longo camp. I think he's a purple belt, maybe getting close to brown belt level. Jiu-jitsu wise, has competed in the gi before, just competes in grappling before. But his bread and butter is his stand up and his kickboxing. He's a pretty good striker. Not the most accurate overall, but throws good shots. Keeps his stance well, moves his head a little bit when he is chucking these overhands and throwing in the pocket. And he's got really good conditioning. So I think it's going to be an interesting fight against Valdez. Valdez has not really encountered someone I'd say as well rounded as Matt Frevola. The contender series fight, it was very hilarious, but he was just made himself available to be hit quite often. So I do see these guys connecting on each other pretty often. I'm interested to see how the wrestling holds up on both sides, because Valdez does chase the takedown in some points, and Frevola has shown to be pretty competent on the ground, both offensively and defensively. So I think he's the rightful favorite here. I don't know if I'm going to get involved. The line is going in the way of Matt Frevola, but maybe look towards maybe some props on the Frevola side, because I do think. I think people are leaning towards this to get a finish, because both guys are so offensively, centric. But both of them are pretty tough. I would also give them credit for. So I think this is gonna be a good fight to watch for sure. So I lean towards Frivola though.
Yeah, I think the odds are about right, and it should be, a high intensity fight. Probably ends in finish at some point. I mean, Valdez, I thought is extremely sloppy. A lot of his pre-contender series wins, he's just out grappling really bad grapplers, like these guys down in whatever promotion that is. and he just gets an easy takedown right away. They give up their backs and rear naked choke. That's how he got to the Contender Series. Then he was fighting White on the Contender Series, and his takedowns weren't coming as easy. He was getting tagged with punches in the feet, and he just showed his real skill set in that Contender Series fight. Now he did pull off a pretty miraculous comeback there. He looked like he was about to get knocked out, and then he knocked White out. So that was a nice comeback there. But the guy's striking is just very wild and volatile, and you know, Frevola is probably gonna, play into that as well. He also gets a bit wild, but previously I think he was pretty durable up until that McKinney knockout. I mean, he had been knocked out by Reyes, but like I've seen the guy take some shots before, so it was pretty surprising to see him get knocked out so quickly by McKinney. And Frevola should be the much more experienced. Overall grappler, I could see him maybe being in some subs at some point here, but he's comfortable defending those. He's obviously coming from that wrestling background. I just think he's the more well-rounded grappler. Shouldn't be phased by these takedown attempts of Valdez, and I think that he's probably gonna have a rough first round, a close first round, but then Valdez is going to start to slow. Frevola should take over with his experience and probably his top game in these later rounds. So it seems like a question of whether Frevola is going to get a round 2-3 finish, or maybe it'll go to decision. I think this fight, and it's pretty accurately lined all around. So I'll probably go with like a Frevola round 3 finish as my pick. That's going to take us to one of the most anticipated fights on the card in the women's strawweight division. We have Vanessa Demopoulos as the, let's see, minus 135 favorite, Silvana Gomez-Juarez plus 115 dog. So this fight was supposed to happen last week. I don't think we analyzed this one on the podcast last week. I think it got canceled like right before we recorded, thankfully. So this is as low level as it gets, really. Both these women came into the UFC on short notice. They didn't really completely earn their way there. Juarez got quickly submitted by Ozzy's girl, Lupi Godinez. Demopoulus had a rough 15-minute beating versus JJ Aldrich. So both of them took L's in their first fight. Now they're getting someone around their own skill level. So striking, I give the advantage to Juarez. She does, throw a calf kick. She does have some decent offense. It seems like she knows the technique on how to throw strikes. She just doesn't really put it together all that well. But I did see her, go to the leg kick very often in some of her fights, and that could be a problem here for Demopoulus. Demopoulus' striking is pretty ugly and doesn't really have much process, but she can take a beating. Lupi Godinez has beat up on her for 5 minutes or for 5 rounds, and Demopoulus stayed in there, stayed tough the entire time. One judge somehow scored that fight a draw. Not sure how that really happened. But Demopoulus should be the better grappler here. She should see that, Lupi went for the takedown versus Juarez, was able to outgrapple her quite easily. But Demopoulus isn't even the quality grappler that Lupi is. So I'm leaning towards Demopoulus because I think that Juarez's grappling should be enough of a huge red flag that Demopoulus has a game plan. I think that she should, go to the clinch, go to those body lock takedowns and look to get her top game going. But hard to be confident in either side here. Although I did see a line that I'm liking for this one. It's only plus 450 now, but I saw Demopoulus sub in the plus 600 range. I thought that would be a good stab, but it's only plus 450 now on some other books. So I've talked enough about this one.
All right, my turn to come in here. Um, so I mean, this fight right here, I put in the same bucket that I put the Hannah Goldie versus Emily Whitmire fight. I see a minus number next to Vanessa Demopoulos and I fade it. Okay, that's it. That's all you need to know. But overall, I just think, yeah, she's super tough, but and she does, I mean, I guess she could connect. She has knocked out like 1 or 2 girls before, but on the ground, I just don't think she's very tight. I mean, if you know what I mean. But she's just super loose. I think Silvana, even though she got blown through by Lupi, this girl does not have the wrestling anywhere near Lupi. I think on the feet she throws some kicks, so I think that might be the way that she gets taken down. But just like I said, she's plus 115. This fight should be no worse than a pick'em. I think that she can land a jab on Vanessa. Vanessa will go for broke, so the fight could get hairy. Like you said, there could be a submission that comes out from some crazy scramble. But let me just tell you guys that might not look into tape and all. Like if you look at Vanessa's fight against that girl Corey McKenna, in like the third round when Vanessa needs to win the fight, she comes out and does like a cartwheel. And like not even
Falls
like
to
a
the ground.
cartwheel kick, like just like a cartwheel. And the reason this is relevant is because Vanessa Demopoulos, before she was an MMA fighter, she was or still is a stripper. She literally has a like manifesto book like on how to become a stripper, like be a better stripper, some of that stuff. So if you guys are trying to get that for your girl, maybe that'd be a good Valentine's Day gift. Spend some of her OnlyFans money on that. It's like professional development. But yeah, I'll pick Silvana. I think she'll outstrike this girl. But I know someone that I respect that is paid juice on Vanessa, which I think is crazy. So yeah, I'll be on the Silvana side.
Yeah, probably a fight that's just too low level to bet though. Have you seen the
No,
goes the
no,
distance
no,
here?
never.
Minus 170 for
I'm
goes
not
the
laying
distance.
any minus, dude. I'm not laying any minuses on these fights. It's not because these are fights where for you as heavyweight overs, but anytime you're laying this juice and like there's a finish, you feel so bad about yourself. No, man, just take the plus money on Juarez and move on.
All right, you heard it here. Ozzy max bet on
Max bet
Silvana
5 units,
Gomez-Juarez.
five
All
units.
right, that's gonna move us to the bantamweight division. We got another guy coming off the contender series, Tony Gravely as the minus 240 favorite. Simon Oliveira plus 205. Start this one off, Ozzy.
Yeah, Oliveira's you see these guys just come up. He's just a weasel, man. These Brazilian weasel guys that they'll get taken down. They'll walk forward. They do the Muay Thai, like stepping up their knees to their elbows. It's just like a very classic kind of guy and fighter. This guy, I think he's pretty physically weak. So I think Tony Gravely, as soon as he gets his hands on him, is going to start tossing him around. He broke Nate Maness's jaw the last time in his last fight, but then ended up getting knocked out in the second round. But this guy is pretty active overall. I think people are questioning his conditioning a lot, which I don't think is a problem at all. And on the feet, he's got power. He's active. He's been improving his jiu-jitsu game. And I don't think that this Oliveira guy is like all his wins are like by guillotine choke, and I don't think he's catching a guy of Tony Gravely's level in a guillotine front choke, any of those things. So I think Tony Gravely is gonna wear this guy out, start dropping some elbows on him, maybe like a back mount ground and pound stoppage or something like that. But Gravely is a deserved favorite. He's at like 70% here, which is I don't love all that much, but I think that he's going to be able to potentially break this Oliveira guy. I don't like Oliveira's game at all. Not the real Oliveira, this Oliveira's, but yes, I'll lean Gravely.
Yeah, I'm not impressed with what I've seen from Oliveira. The guy is basically like he's either going to guillotine you in round one or probably lose by decision. And so if you like Oliveira in any extent in this fight, Oliveira by sub in round one plus 1100. I think that's probably the only way he wins this fight because Gravely much more experienced, been in the UFC for a while now. Probably or definitely the better striker. He's got a good wrestling pedigree, and all he really has to do is avoid that guillotine. So if he can, strike for round one and not shoot a takedown, he should be really golden to just coast to probably a decision victory here. Maybe even finding a finish later on here. Because after that one guillotine attempt from Oliveira, the dude is really bad off his back. If you watched his loss against a guy named Farias, extremely bloody fight, but Farias got like close to 13 minutes of top time in that fight. And Oliveira just got taken down, laid on his back for long stretches, not really able to get up off of his back. So the guy is guillotine or bust. His striking, pretty much non-existent. I mean, he did have a little bit of striking success against All Day there, but probably deserved to lose that contender series fight. Not really even sure why they signed this guy off of that kind of underwhelming split decision win. But the contender series is just signing everybody nowadays. But so I think Gravely is a bit of an idiot enough to where you should be a bit concerned about that guillotine in round one. I could see him just diving right into that guillotine and getting finished because the guy, likes to make fights close. The Geraldo De Freitas fight was close. He obviously lost the Maness fight in comeback fashion. So I'm not confident in Gravely enough to endorse him minus 240 here. So I'd say it's Oliveira sub around 1 or pass. Maybe look to live bet Gravely. That's going to bring us to the fifth fight on the card. In the welterweight division, we have some more debutants. We got Jack Della Maddalena minus 335, Pete Rodriguez plus 275. So Maddalena, probably one of the most exciting guys coming off the Contender Series last season, just has a really exciting style. I mean, the guy can box extremely well, digs to the body, nasty combination punches, also has some solid kicks of his own. The only real weaknesses we've seen from him is sometimes he's a slow starter. He has been rocked a bit regionally, and he did get taken down and put in a deep arm triangle attempt in that Lusa fight. He was able to defend and get right back to winning the round. He didn't even lose the round despite being in that deep arm bar or a deep arm triangle. So I'm really excited to see where Maddalena goes. He was supposed to fight Warlley-Alves, I believe, and I think he was like minus 200 over Alves too. So you can see that people are really high on Maddalena. This Rodriguez fella, not coming off the Contender Series, only has 4 fights, and has knocked out pretty much all 4 of his opponents. The guy does look like he has some fast hands. The guy seems like he has a pretty good understanding of boxing. I think he's a southpaw as well. And I just don't think the guy's fought anybody nearly good enough to think that he's going to have a chance here against Maddalena. I mean, the experience between these two guys is just huge. And Rodriguez seems like knockout round 1 or bust. I don't see how he's going to win this fight late. I think the later it goes, Maddalena is just going to take over. And Maddalena is probably going to get a finish in rounds 2 or 3 here. I mean, the guy is just a nasty body puncher. He knows how to build on a fight. And I think that's probably what's going to happen here. A knockout in round 2 or 3. Rodriguez knockout round 1 is 10-1. So that's the way to play him if you like him at all. You excited for this fight at all, Ozzy?
Yeah, it's a freaking sick fight. I mean, these guys are gonna fucking bang. This Pete Rodriguez guy is classic, like LA, Arizona dude. That he's just coming to bang, man. This guy's coming to eat tacos, eat burritos, and fucking bang. And Jack Della, my boy Della, he's gonna oblige. I mean, this dude, he's okay, but people are just ridiculously hyped. The only people not hyping up Della are literally his own people, because Australians hate other Australians, man. Any of these guys I ever talked to or mentioned in the MMA space, man, they hate every Australian fighter. But Della, he's okay, I mean, the thing is, it's easy to hit him though, like, because he just is like, all right, I'm standing in the pocket. Like, I like the angles that his shots come in at. They're pretty tight, but his chin is there to be hit. So I think these guys are gonna bang. I got some under here at like the minus 115, 117, 120 price is going out there a little bit now. But I think one of these guys gets knocked out. I would favor it to be obviously Rodriguez to not get knocked out, but you never know. But I do think Jack Della is able to keep that left hand long, throw some kicks out at this guy. Even maybe he could take him down. But I think Jackson to butcher this guy up as long as he doesn't get hit with like a counter hook. And but Pete's coming to bang, man. This guy looks, I don't know, he looks kind of scary.
He's game, yeah. He's
But I
gonna
have
show
no
up
idea who this guy is. I've never heard of him, and but I think he's getting knocked out.
for sure. Do we know what you know Hispanic country he's from? Because if he's from the DR, you might have to
He's
change the pick
definitely
on
not
it.
from the DR, bro. I would know
All
that.
right,
I just told you
for
I
sure.
don't know who this guy is. Think I'd not know who he
What do
was?
you think about this? I mean, now
What?
typically knockout props in this range are no good, but Maddalena knockout minus
I
120.
hit
You
the
think
under, dude. You hit the under. I hit
that's
the under.
under 1.5?
Yeah. They're coming to bang, dude.
Interesting.
They're coming to bang. This guy, Pete Rodriguez, like I said, there's gonna be a lot of Pete Rodriguez's in that in what's it called? Honda Arena, Honda Center. I don't know what's called. And he's
I
coming
think
to
that's
bang, dude. So I mean, if you want to play Jack KO, by all means, I guess do it. But I like getting that
should
info.
hit. Yep. All right, that's gonna move us along to another fight in the welterweight division. We got once again another Contender Series guy making
God,
his UFC
yes, it's
debut.
all contender. Yes,
Michael Morales minus
yes,
115. Officer Trevin Giles
yes,
minus 105.
yes.
What are you thinking here?
Yes. All right. So I've seen a lot of love for Trevin Giles this week. I've liked betting on Trevin Giles fights. I've gotten a bunch of them right. I got that Duplessis fight right last time that it was at Pick'em, and here similar price. Giles going down to 170. I mean, it's a move that I think he's made because like that uh Roman buys fight, was a little difficult. He was getting clinched, even though he won that fight. And then Duplessis was able to get him out of there, grapple him up a little bit. But this Michael Morales dude, I think people are, I don't know why people are hating on him that much. Like this guy's 22, he's got 12 wins. Like, yeah, it could be against like some bad level guys, but that means he was fighting these guys at like 18 years old. Which I think is pretty impressive. He's getting a lot of these finishes. I think his grappling is a little bit better than people are giving him credit for. On the feet, he'll throw counters. He's not that active. But Trevin Giles, he's just like hopscotch. Like he's like double dutch. Like he's like in and out, in and out. But he doesn't throw his jab that like like a guy like Santiago Ponzinibbio. Right, he has a good jab, but he uses it a lot. Like Giles has a good jab, but he doesn't use it very much. He doesn't uncork the right hand very often. And if you're not scared of him, I think that you could clinch this guy. You could get inside on him, and I don't think the dip to 170 is necessarily going to be that helpful to him. I think that Morales is the better grappler here, and I think he's going to be able to get that going here at some points. Now I know he is unproven, hasn't been to that many decisions, but he looked good to me in that contender series fight. And now that the line is coming in his direction, I'm gonna pick Morales. I think that he'll be able to grapple Giles. I think that Giles' inactivity will cost him here. I think that Morales could throw some good counters on the feet, but yeah, he needs to watch out for the when Trevin does uncork some of these shots. But I think I see Morales getting takedowns here. I think the gas tank of Giles has never been all that great, and I don't know, first time ever doing a weight cut. I don't know if it's gonna work out that well, even though he does look a lot slimmer. But yeah, I'm gonna pick Morales here to get the win, and I think that will be contrarian from a lot of folks this week.
Yeah, I think this will be the first time we like kind of firmly disagree on a fight in 2022. I like Giles here, Officer Giles. That is, I think that as you just mentioned, he has been slimming down, getting a lot leaner. I don't think this weight cut's going to be too big of a deal for him, and I think it's going to be a good thing because the dude just is clearly not one of the athletes that can compete at 185. He's lost fights in pretty embarrassing fashion, like to Zach Cummings, by getting dropped and submitted there. So I just don't think that he's going to really compete with 185. So it's a good move going down to 170 here. And, Morales is, I'll give him credit. The dude is very patient. A lot of these contender series guys we're talking about on this card, like, Oliveira and Valdez, they're kind of spazzes, as Ozzy called them, weasels. You do have Morales, who is a very patient guy. His pre-UFC fights, I watched like 3 or 4 of them, and this guy's like basically throwing nothing, just like looking for the shots, and then he lands like one punch and his opponents curl up, and the fight's over. So he did have some weak strength of schedule, but he really showed up in his contender series fight. Definitely the best showing of his career. And like when the guy was aggressive, when he was throwing volume, like he was being very effective. He was outstriking Veretnikov. He took Veretnikov down a few times. Didn't show me anything crazy on top position, but he did show a new wrinkle to his game there. So definitely his best performance to date. But I think you got to be concerned about that in the betting lines. I think you got to look at his entire career and say that performance, might not be the same Morales we're going to see in every fight. So I don't exactly have a super confident read on how Giles is going to win this fight. I just trust him to, I trust his experience. He's obviously the much more experienced guy. I think that he's a solid enough striker. He's got a good jab, solid boxing fundamentals. He's pretty good at defending takedowns. As Ozzy said, the Roman Vismos fight, he did do a pretty good job defending those takedowns, avoiding bottom position, ended up on top at key times in that fight. And I think that I'm not impressed enough with Morales' takedowns to think that he's going to put Giles on bottom here for long periods of time. And I just trust Giles to make this real close in the feet. So I think I would give, Giles a slight favorite in this line. He should probably be, around minus 120 here. But I'm not completely writing Morales off. I think the guy does have a good foundation. He is extremely young, seems like a solid athlete. So I like Giles here for a 1 unit bet. Got him at like plus 115 last night. And it seems like it's already moving in the other direction. So we're on the right track. And that's going to be enough of that fight. Moving on to the next fight in the in the bantamweight division, we got Raoni Barcelos minus 515, Victor Henry plus 390. I think this is probably a bit wide, just considering that Henry does look game. He does come forward and throw a lot of strikes. He kind of has like that Tony Ferguson style where he's marching forward, mixing up the kicks, knees, punches well, and just constantly pressuring his opponents. And Barcelos is known at times for not being the highest volume striker. Timur Valiev was able to win rounds and obviously win that decision in kind of incorrect fashion, in my opinion, by just pumping volume out, throwing a lot of kicks, and just giving Barcelos a lot of looks. Barcelos, um, just isn't comfortable in that high paced fight. But I do think that Barcelos should have a pretty big grappling advantage here. I haven't seen too good things from Henry in terms of his defensive grappling, his takedown defense. Once he gets on bottom, he can't get stuck on bottom for long periods of time. So I think that the striking has potential to be really close here. I would still give Barcelos a slight advantage, but the real big advantage for Barcelos here is going to be in the grappling. So I think Barcelos at like, I don't know, minus 300, 350 would be a little more accurate. So the value probably is on the dog Henry here. This fight was supposed to happen like a month ago and it got pushed back. So this should be a real fun fight. Henry not coming off the Contender Series, but he did get signed. So he seems like a pretty entertaining guy.
Yeah, so I think very interesting fight. I'm glad that it's taking place finally now in the new year. I like Victor Henry. This guy's never been finished in his career. Is pretty solid overall. Has fought, even though if you don't want to say the toughest competition, as tough as you could essentially get being outside in the UFC and especially on the Asian scene. He's got a win over Kyler Phillips, which kind of he took his best licks early on and then started rallying late. So this guy has pretty good conditioning, pretty decent work rate overall. His wrestling, his grappling is a little unconventional. He comes from that not pancrase catch wrestling style. He's a Josh Barnett guy, so he's from like that Northwest, I think, area, or trains there. But yeah, never been finished. These guys are the same age. This fight should not be 4-1 in the favor of Barcelos. That should be reserved for guys with not too much experience. Victor Henry has almost 26 fights, has a bunch of finishes, has only lost by decision, like you said. So I'm gonna tell you now my best bet, or like a bet that I'll give. I think I would have ended up giving out a plus money underdog, but to make it like a more reasonable play, I like the over here, the over 2.5, or the goes the distance here. I think these guys scrap for a bit. Barcelos, his takedowns are not he has good takedowns, but I don't think he's the best at landing in the most favorable positions to then produce a finish. And I think it's going to be harder for him to get in there and finish takedowns early on or quickly on Victor Henry. So I see these guys going back and forth a bit, and I do like the Henry side money line value play over 2.5 or goes the distance. Like that a lot though.
Yeah, looking at the props for this one, they have Barcelos knockout plus 200 and then sub plus 460. Those should probably be flipped, honestly. So I don't mind a small pop on Barcelos sub plus 460.
Take the over.
Um, that's going to move us to the last prelim. Definitely the best fight on the prelims. Really looking forward to this one. We have in the featherweight division, Ilia Topuria as the big favorite. I'm looking for the line here. Minus 650, Charles Jourdain plus 425. It's your turn to start this one off. What are you thinking about this late replacement fight?
I love this fight. 145, right in my wheelhouse. Topuria, a lot of hype behind him. I think 3 wins in the UFC, if I'm correct. Right, 2 finishes
Yep.
over Hall and Damon Jackson, and a win by decision over Zalal. I just think this is a much more difficult fight, just like this last Victor Henry one. I think a lot of disrespect on the Jourdain side. Topuria, he comes forward, he mixes up his attack in terms of boxing to the head and to the body. So those body shots that he landed on Jackson, but he has not fought any guy who really brings the pace. Is a guy that comes forward and is a well versed striker like Charles Jourdain is. I was on him in his last fight against Iwo. He completely destroyed him. But I think the price here is indicative or kind of leaning into him getting caught in that darce by Erosa, and then that period of time that he was on his back against Andre. But I don't think those two are that. I mean, People will see that he got caught in that Darce choke, and then see that Topuria he goes for guillotines, anacondas, Darces himself, and I think they're feeling that he's gonna take him down and finish him one of those chokes. But I don't see it. I don't think that's happening. Not that I don't see it, but I don't think that it's happening at this clip. I think Jourdain, he's got that big cage to work with, which I think is going to be a big benefit to him. He moves his feet pretty well. He uses his kicks pretty well. His left hand is very dangerous. He drops a lot of guys, right? He's dropped almost every guy that he's fought in the UFC. And why is this, why is this fight going to be different? I think this guy's super not super well rounded, but he's aware in every aspect of the fight. He's got a tons of experience, has gone the distance multiple times in UFC. And yeah, I just think that he's a great bet here at this plus number. Maybe if you want to sprinkle that over, if you want to lean into Topuria, maybe having to chase these takedowns. But I don't think this guy Topuria is going to walk Jourdain down easily. But I could be wrong. I didn't think he was going to do it to Damon Jackson either, and he got destroyed. But I think this is super disrespectful to Jourdain, and I think that he is alive here to pull off an upset potentially, especially later on when Topuria's rushing these takedowns a bit. Jourdain has shown some get up game as well, and I'm telling you, his grappling game is not as bad as people think it is. So I think he's live here for a finish of Topuria or just a straight up money line win. So where I'll be, where my money will be on.
Yeah, I definitely agree that Topuria is getting a bit overvalued here. I think the market and, he's getting a big push from the fans, the market. And I think, over 86% here is getting a bit crazy. I mean, Jourdain obviously coming off that last fight, he obviously saw something in this matchup and decided to accept it on short notice. So I definitely think he'll fight for your money here at plus 425, plus 450. That does seem worth like a small bet. And the striking, I think both these guys have striking tools that are going to give each other weaknesses. Like Julian Erosa was ripping to the body really well of Jourdain. Topuria loves ripping to the body, so that could be a big factor. Also, Topuria was he did get rocked by a head kick in the regionals. Zalal was hitting him with some head kicks, and Jourdain a really fast head kick. So I think that both these guys have like striking tools to give each other problems. But I mean, when they're striking with one another, there's no way that it's going to be looking minus 650. I mean, maybe you can give a slight edge to Puria because he's just relentless with his punches. But the more diverse striker has got to be Charles Jourdain here. He has good power of his own. And he has been dropped a few times himself, but he's hard to finish. He rallies back from getting dropped at times, and he's not going to go away lightly here. The only way that Topuria is looking minus 600 is just repeated takedowns in top position. And Topuria's wrestling is pretty solid. He's really good from that front headlock, like Ozzy was saying. He goes to the guillotine, the arming guillotine, the Darce, the anaconda, and we did see Jourdain get tapped out with that. Was it it was a Darce by Julian Erosa, but Julian just snatched that, not, I wouldn't say out of nowhere, but, it was a very unique position that he snatched that choke from and just cinched it up within 10
In the third
seconds. The fight
round
is,
at 150. That was a late fight change at 150. Julian Rosa looked huge in that fight, and like you said, it was a third round finish. So, do we think that Topuria is chasing that finish like that in the round three? I don't really think so, man.
yeah, the one time that we've seen, I think, is that the one time in Topuria's career we've seen him in the third round? Yeah, was versus Zalal. All of his other fights ended early in round one. The only time we've seen him late was Zalal. That was a short notice fight. I think he only had a few weeks to prepare, so he does get a little bit of slack there. But he did look a little slow in that last round versus Zalal. And he also had Zalal in a ton of guillotines. He had him in an arming guillotine, a mounted guillotine, an anaconda, and Zalal was able to survive all of them. And I don't think Zalal is, that great of a grappler. So it's interesting to see if what's going to happen after these takedowns. Is Topuria going to be able to cinch up one of those chokes? Will Jourdain be able to fight his way out? But I mean, I think that 650 is just way out of line here for Jourdain. I mean, for Topuria, I think he's just getting way too much love in the lines here. I mean, his submission line is literally favored on Bet Online, minus 115. I mean, that's extremely rare to see a sub line as a favorite. So Jourdain knockout is plus 1,000 on some books. So, don't sleep on Jourdain here. This should be a really fun
Look at
fight,
that
even
knockout.
though it's
10 to 1. You crazy?
Yeah, that's 10-1 on DraftKings and FanDuel for his knockout. And like Ozzy was saying, the dude he dropped Rojo twice, dropped Feely once, dropped Doohu Choi twice. I mean, the dude is getting
Cooley
knockdowns. He has
Didn't he drop Cooley
no,
too?
no, no. Cooley Bao dropped him
Yeah,
actually.
whatever.
Um, yeah, but that's enough of that. We're moving on to the main card. We had the first fight in the middleweight division. We got Brazilian versus Brazilian action here. We got Rodolfo Vieira minus 205, Wellington-Turman plus 175. I know you always like watching Vieira compete. Probably one of the highest jiu-jitsu credentialed guys to ever fight in the UFC. So,
Yeah.
um,
Adolfo is amazing, man. Like in grappling wise, one of probably the 10 best guys to ever come into the MMA game, and was able to a little bit translate it to Nogi as well. Do think he won an ADCC. And he's had his ups and downs, but in his last fight, I did think that he made some improvements. Obviously, right, he was much more calm in that fight. Landed the jab at will, landed some pretty good shots to Dustin's face, and was able to take some shots as well. That's something that I like to see. And even though he has slowed down, maybe he slowed down a little bit in that fight, slowed down in the Fluffy Hernandez fight. This guy shoots takedowns, man. Like he will like he will expend all of his gas, which is not great to do in this economy. But he'll do it, man. Like this guy will put a hole in, like he will chase takedowns, so go for submissions. And I don't know why the UFC keeps making these Brazilian versus Brazilian fights, like especially at 185. Like they're trying to extinguish any guys that have heard of jujitsu before they get up to Izzy, I guess. But
they're protecting Izzy, yeah.
I think that's what it is, man. I really like the only Brazilians they give Izzy are the ones that strike. But uh, to get more into the matchup here, Turman's a guy I was a little bit lower on or early on. I faded him against Hernandez, but here, he does know some jiu-jitsu. He did look, I don't know, like I think he was trying to implement a game plan against Sam Alvey. It's just inherently very difficult, but just looked bad in that fight. I mean, his cardio was fine. His chin is a little suspect. But I do think that he can give Vieira a fight. Um, excuse me, maybe peel him up in the clinch off of takedowns that Rodolfo is shooting in. I think he is a little bit stronger than a guy like Dustin. So maybe able to stay up on his feet a little bit more. But when it is on the feet, I just don't like his striking that much. He doesn't really have a history of coming forward and throwing a lot of shots and really trying to get people out of there. But I do lean towards him being a little bit of the value side. I know some action has come in his way. I am a little bit on this over as well. That has moved as well. I got that at like minus 120, 125, I believe. So I think that's a good way to lean into this fight because I do think that Turman is not going to get completely blown away on top or from bottom if he does get taken down. He trains with Glover Teixeira, who has a very similar jiu-jitsu game on top that Rodolfo has, right? Very arm triangle, uh, mount focus, right? They're looking to pin you down and then strangle you from there and advance, positions there. So he's been training as well with Alex Pereira. So I do think that we can see some improvements from the Turman side. So I like him a little bit, a bit more, especially at this money line price, which I think will continue potentially to come in a little bit. So I'll just pick him, I guess. Like I wouldn't bet Vieira at this price. Just does not have enough experience. Turman has like double the fights of his, so I'll go with a value play on Turman and hit that over as well.
I'm not really seeing, much value on Turman here. I think the line is, pretty accurate. Maybe even Vieira could be a bigger dog, or I mean, a bigger favorite, because Turman was having trouble out grappling Carl Roberson. Let's get that straight. I mean, he was stuck on bottom for multiple minutes on versus Roberson. He got a takedown on Roberson, went for a back take, he lost it. So if you can't even out grapple Carl Roberson, I don't think he's going to be getting any meaningful, out grappling time versus Vieira here. So if Turman's going to win the fight, he's going to have to do it with striking. He's going to have to do it with his cardio. And, just looking at their striking, I was watching the recent fights, and even though Vieira is quite basic, all he's doing is throwing a jab, maybe a 1-2, he's high guard, and he's not really doing much. He knows his limits, right? He knows what his bread and butter is that jab was working really well against Stoltzfus, busting him up. He got some good power behind that jab. I mean, the dude is extremely muscular. He was, busting up the face of Stoltzfus early in that fight. And he continued that up until like the 7 or 8 minute mark. He was just consistently jabbing them, and I think that's a very methodical approach from him because he knows he has gas problems. He knows he can't wrestle for the full 15 minutes, so he's developed this jab as a tool to slow the fight down. And meanwhile, Turman's striking, I just feel like the guy doesn't really know what his best strikes are. He doesn't have any consistent offense. He doesn't have a combination of strike that he can go do. He just kind of spams all these different strikes and see what sticks to the wall. And I don't really think any of it is that good. So I mean, I think the striking is going to be really close between these guys. I think Turman will probably be throwing more volume, but Vieira should just be popping that jab in his face. And Turman, has gotten knocked out a few times in the past year and a half. So his durability is a big question. And most of Turman's approach is going for takedowns. He took down Perez. He was attempting takedowns on Alvey. He got some initial takedowns on Silva. I just don't think he's going to be able to go to that A game of his here against Vieira, who's the better grappler. And I think that Vieira's going to probably get out to an early lead here. If Turman wins this fight, I think it's going to be in comeback fashion. So you're probably going to have a better chance to live bet Turman at like 3 or 4-1 odds. I actually saw Turman around 3/decision is plus 450. That seems like a good way to play him because I think Vieira will be tough to finish early on here. I mean, even when Hernandez was bombing away on him, he didn't go away very easily in that fight. It took like an onslaught of strikes and subs to finally get him out of there. And I just don't see Turman having that same tenacity to get a finish. So I think the line's about right here. Maybe Vieira could go as high as minus 250 in my official capping, which is where he is still on some books. So not that crazy of a take, I'd say. So I like Vieira here to get it done. I think we might actually see Vieira's first decision win here. I'll make a bold claim with that.
So hit that
So that's gonna
over 2.5, 2.5.
Yeah. What is that? Oh yeah, it's at one.
One and a half.
Wow,
One and a half's been moving. But
minus 145 for over 1.5. Yeah, I think that'll hit.
yeah,
I mean, obviously the biggest threat to that is Vieira sub one. What is goes the distance plus 200? Wow, that's interesting. And
yeah,
Vieira decision plus 420. I like those. That's going to take us to the next fight, probably one of my most anticipated fights in the card, bantamweight division. We have Nurmagomedov as the favorite here, minus 187, plus 162 in the comeback for Stamman. And right off the bat, I'm taking the All-American wrestler here. I mean, Saeed has this weird offense where he just throws a bunch of bullshit out there, honestly. I mean, he's flicking these jabs, flicking these kicks, throwing 2 spinning strikes a minute. And I mean, it's just such a weird style of offense. I mean, it's not really effective at this high level. And we've seen him get taken down from it before. We saw Barcelos time those kicks. He was just waiting, and then Saeed throws a spinning back kick literally every 30 seconds. And all Barcelos had to do was time it, take him down, and was able to get some key takedowns and win in that fight. And I think Stamman's going to have the same exact approach. I mean, Stamman is, the stereotypical wrestle boxer. The guy maybe throws a few punches on the feet, then looks to grapple. Not the most exciting fighter. I think he's like I think he has like some of the most decision wins with no finishes out of any male fighter in the UFC or some shit like that. So I think you know what you're getting from Stamman here. He's going to be wrestling hard. I don't trust the takedown defense of Nurmagomedov. And I just think even when it's on the feet, Saeed's offense is so like knockout reliant and big strike reliant. He doesn't have that consistent tools that he can use. And I think even on the feet, Stamman could make it close with, just winging hooks, winging overhands, and just coming forward. So I like the All-American wrestler. Got a bet on him already. 1.25 units at plus 180. And I also like his decision line at plus 270, I believe. Yep, plus 270 for Stamman decision.
yeah, man. This dude Saeed, man. I fucking hate this guy, man. For his debut fight, man, it was against Scoggins, dude. At the
Loss.
time, This one of the biggest bets I ever made was on Justice Scoggins. It was, I don't this is what, like 4 years ago. So I don't know how much it was, but one of the biggest bets ever. And I was adding on this thing live. There was like plus money, like after round one, after round two. And then I thought it was, I mean, that was still, I think, one of the worst robberies I've seen. I mean, a lot of shit happened, but a hideous robbery. And it hit my wallet hard, man. But going into this fight, and I mean, Saeed's been a guy who, to give him credit, like he's, I guess, like outperformed. He's 3-1 in the UFC, right? A lot of these people, they'll be like 1-3, but won that fight against Ramos right after moving up to 135. The Barcelos, I mean, this guy's just spinning around all the time. Like, his biggest strength, that is also his biggest weakness. It worked out, I guess, against that Schriegel guy, which I liked Saeed to finish that fight because Schriegel just does not react well to punches. And he's very uncomfortable when you have a guy like this inside. But I think Stamen is more of the mold of like Barcelos, like a guy who's has very good timing, moves directionally in the right ways, is able to capitalize on mistakes. That's why Cody Saman's record is as good as it is, or was good as good as it was when he came into UFC, because he's not a guy who makes a lot of mistakes. He's not a guy who is going to get blown out of the water by a lot of these guys. That Marab fight, I was on Stamen in that fight. I thought it was a much closer fight than on the rewatch too, or just like when you first watched it. I thought it was a pretty close fight overall. I think Marab was edging a few of the rounds, but I thought round three could have maybe gone either way. Round one, could have been a little bit closer. So it's really hard to beat guys like Cody Stamen. He has some karate background, so I think he's used to these spinning techniques coming in his way. He has a superior, I think, jiu-jitsu game on top. Saeed, tough guy. Another guy. It's hard to look good against him, but I just don't like anything about what he does. Like, and the fact that I could get plus 170 on a very reliable fighter to take this guy on, and what I think either way is probably a close-ish decision. I think Cody Stamen probably best, one of the best bets on the card, and he's on a 2-fight losing streak as well. So I think we got a good guy coming out here who's pretty active, has more experience as well, and this is a fantastic buy low opportunity on Cody Saban.
Yeah, well, I was just about to say same thing, buy low. And I mean, Saeed's probably definitely getting some of the Nurmagomedov, rub with the name. But the dude has no resemblance of Khabib. They're not related. I mean, I think this is a great spot for Stamen as well. So
Just to give some
that's gonna
just background stuff too.
yes.
Saeed has not been in the States, so he used to, always do his camps with Mark Henry in Jersey. None of that this camp. Even though I think he has been in America to finish the camp for like maybe the last like 2-3 months, but did not interact with or go over to Mark Henry's gym at all, from what it looks like. And he's guy's super inactive, man. There's no way he can be very
One
sharp.
fight a year.
There's
Yeah.
no way he could be very sharp, and you need to be pretty sharp to beat a guy like Cody Stamen. So get this line will go down for sure. So
He's he's got 50 seconds of fight time in a little over 2 years. So
tough to look good when you're doing that.
we got in the welterweight division next fight, last fight before our title fights. We got a little bit of a late replacement here. Michel Pereira as the minus 270 favorite, Andre Fialho plus 230. Give us your thoughts on Fialho's chances here.
So this is a switch up in opponents. I forget who Pereira was fighting first. Who was he fighting first?
Muslim Salikov.
Salikov. So another striker, similar, so that's the same here. But Salikov more like kung fu, like unorthodox with the strikes, is very good as well. Filo, he's like more of like a Muay Thai, I don't know, like kickboxer guy. I kind of like his game overall. He's been catching some of these, excuse me, knockouts of late. He's got a pretty good stance, like when he's coming forward. He does not move defensively very well, but he is always ready to throw back to throw overall. So whether he counters all the time or not, it comes down to his conditioning and his cardio, where he wants to be in the fight. But I do think that Pereira, he's I think this is the fade. This is the opportunity to get on the fade train of this guy. So we got a guy in Fila making his debut, similar age. I think the jiu-jitsu game, I think, is Fila's fine. I don't think Pereira has a big edge there. In the wrestling, Filo has been held down a few times, but I do think actually his offensive wrestling is not that bad, especially when early on, if like he's not tired, which is another thing. I think either of these guys could get the knockout early or late, especially Pereira if Andre slows down, but even vice versa, if this is like a grueling fight. He's got power. He trains with a good gym. I think he's got some of a ground game. So at this plus 230 number, Michel Pereira, unreliable guy. Like this guy has got a bunch of losses on his record. He's gone the distance a few times here in the UFC, but Nico Price is coming onto him, and I don't see why Fila should be priced this much different than Nico Price was, because I think his striking is actually a bit tighter than Nico Price, has similar power, and ground game wise, I don't think is a big difference there. So I like Fila out here to potentially win this fight, and I don't think a lot of people will agree with that.
Yeah, when I was taping Fila, I didn't exactly love what I was seeing from him. Some guys, when they pump out a lot of offense at him, he doesn't really have a good idea on how to defend or how to counter. He kind of just absorbs the offense, and then he doesn't really know what to do. So he's not the most high level striker, but the dude does have power. He's coming off of, I think, 4 knockouts within a calendar year. Just knocked out Stefan Sekulic with a nasty elbow from the clinch. He was defending a takedown, and just one short elbow just knocked him out pretty much cold. So the dude definitely has some power. He's very experienced. As Ozzy mentioned, when he chooses to offensively grapple, he's not bad. Like he took down Chris Curtis a few times. He can get a back take off of that, and I think that I just feel like he has the skills to make this fight close everywhere. And when it's in open space, Pereira should be the faster, more athletic guy, should be pumping out that volume in his face. He's probably not going to win at kicking range, but if Filau can get inside, if he can time a blitz of some sort and get a punch combination going, he could test the chin of Pereira. Don't forget, before Pereira got to the UFC, the guy did have kind of a suspect chin. Just go to Todorovic, put him out. And he's coming off of back-to-back really close fights. The Chaos Williams fight, that was a complete toss-up decision. I was on Pereira there, and I had no idea if he was going to win that decision or not. And then the Nico Price fight, he was getting, bombed on in round 3, unanimously lost round 3. And it's a bit of a nitpick, but I think round 2 really came down to that Pereira backflip where he kicked Nico Price in the head. The referee kind of let him get away with an illegal strike there, and then Pereira mounted, and then the round was over. But before that moment, Price was really building, and if they fight 10 times, I think that Price could honestly beat him 3 or 4 of those times. So I'm just not super impressed with Pereira to the point where I would recommend laying minus 270. He's just not a guy who covers minus 270. I mean, all his fights in the UFC,
Dude, are you
he's never
taking Filau or not? What's up?
probably not.
All
Probably not.
right.
What I'm saying is Filau sub though plus 2,600. I think he's never subbed anybody in his entire career, but I think that number is pretty whack for this type of matchup. But yeah,
You
value
have to
aside,
bet
definitely.
Filau here. You have to.
Mm,
You have to.
I don't know. I don't know about a have to, but
Filau
I
inside the distance here is inside the just money line,
that
just
that's
all
good. That's good.
everything. You just Filau. You have to get on the. I'm fading Mikel Pereira. Starting now. Now's the time to get on him.
Yeah, the inside the distance is probably the way to play him. He doesn't really have the
This guy
volume to
is
win a
better
decision.
than Nico Price.
I don't know about
He
that. I don't know
is,
about
dude.
that.
Are you kidding me?
I'm a big fan of Nico.
No
I don't know.
way.
I'm not willing to
No
write him
way. You
off.
saw how he had to
Um,
beat Oliveira in his last fight? No, this guy's better than him. Or at
did
least
he?
similar. This is same ballpark, but let's move on.
Yep. I'm with that. And that's going to take us to co-main event of the evening, the trilogy in the flyweight division. We have Moreno, the champ this time, minus 170, Figueiredo plus 145. So, huge odds shift between these fights. Obviously, the first time Figueiredo minus 300, the second time Figueiredo minus 200. Now he's plus 145. The first fight, let's be real, Figueiredo won that fight. He won rounds 1, 2, 3, and 5. The only round he lost was round 4. And the majority of judges actually agreed with what I just said. 2 out of 3 judges gave him 1, 2, 3, and 5, and it was still a draw somehow. Um, then in the second fight, obviously Figueiredo just looked, completely flat. He looked like there was something like physically wrong with him. Who knows what it really was? People speculating that it was the weight cut, but there was a clear difference in his strategy change between the first fight and the second fight. First fight he came out setting the tempo, being the aggressor, landing shots on Moreno, and then the second fight he barely threw anything in the first round. He completely let Moreno dictate the fight. He let Moreno get the momentum. He let Moreno take him down and hold him down a few times. And I definitely think there was something wrong. Just give me a quick answer on this one, Ozzy. Do you think there was something, physically wrong with Figueiredo in that fight, or do you think it was just all mental?
I mean, for sure it could have been something wrong, but there's always something wrong with these guys. So I don't know, but he just looked off. I mean, the guy, his motor
Yep.
wasn't there,
Well, that's a
and he
that's a good
wasn't
point.
really
We'll
hustling.
never.
So I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, it just didn't look, like he was in the right gear. So the momentum's got to be on Moreno's side this time. He's got the confidence. He's obviously coming off the win, submitted him. And Figdo has been training at what is it, Fight Ready with Henry Cejudo. Cejudo is a guy around his same weight class. I think that training with Cejudo could really benefit him. I expect Fig to be in a lot better shape. I don't think he's going to let Moreno get those easy takedowns like he did last time. And hopefully Figueiredo just gets back to that early aggression. He comes out throwing more punches. And I think from a betting perspective, I think it's Figueiredo or pass. I think that we've I just don't think he can be back in Moreno at -170 at this price. Even though he's got the momentum, I just think that this is Moreno or Figueiredo's fight to win or lose. It's really depends on his approach to the fight. And I kind of wish we had some other fights between these guys instead of fighting 3 times in a row. It's never really exciting when you see them fight back to back to back. So I'm not extremely excited for this one, but I would like to see Figueiredo get his belt back. I'm a bigger fan of Fig, although I like Moreno too. So I like Figueiredo here as an
You're
underdog.
insane, man. This fight is gonna be fucking crazy. I think this fight is going to be similar to the
Well,
first
yeah,
one.
it's gonna be
This
good.
fight is
It's gonna
gonna
be
be
good.
nuts, dude. I think it's
It's
gonna
gonna
be similar to the first one. Okay. And I think that we're gonna get a back and forth war right here. I do think Figueiredo in some way, yeah, he was compromised in that first fight, but if you want to go narrative nation, or
second fight.
yeah, second fight. If you want to go narrative nation, Figueiredo stayed in Arizona, stayed at the scene of the crime. Right, he lost in Arizona, stayed there for his camp. Probably a lot more comfortable. Fighting this second time. Close by there in California, and I think that the approach that he has to take there is first like his conditioning. So like the weight cut. If Henry Cejudo is helping him and keeping his weight down more, which is something a wrestler is obviously really good at. I think that's the first thing that he needs to check off. And then, other than that, if it stays on the feet, I think this fight is back and forth, very much so. So it was why I'm leaning towards the plus money on the Figueiredo side. And then if Brandon Moreno is going to go in for takedowns and grappling, Figueiredo just needs to be able to hustle. I do think he has a better jiu-jitsu game, but if he is on bottom consistently, it's just in a sap at his gas tank, and then the margin for his error is kind of goes away, and that's what happened in the first fight and why Moreno was able to finish that rear naked choke. But I think on the feet, he's going to be able to throw the jab out at Moreno. Moreno keeps those hands super close to his face, not great for countering, but does get you and can get but you could protect your face from clean shots a bit more. So I think Figueiredo is going to be able to be on the front foot and do that. And I like him for a bet here. I think this probably does close a little bit tighter. I'm not extremely confident, but I'm interested really to see this fight, and I see that over only slightly plus money. Very interesting line. I'm not sure where I lean on that yet, but I'll definitely have something on Figueiredo here at this plus money. But it's gonna be a tough fight for him, though. He's going into California. Moreno's gonna have the crowd behind him once again. But I think we see a more competitive fight for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's gonna be a good fight. I'm looking forward to it. I'm just saying, back to back to back, not the most exciting thing to see it over and over. And Figueiredo, I think probably going into that second fight just didn't have the motivation. He just beat this guy. He got robbed. It was a draw. Now he lost. He's got that motivation to get his belt back. I think we're gonna see Figueiredo back to his old form
Yeah,
here.
he looks
So,
fucking focused, man. They call him the God of War for a reason. I wouldn't like beating him two times in a row is very difficult.
yep. But it could be regardless of his win or lose, it could be his last fight at flyweight ever. He
Yeah,
could be, the future
I
of
love that guy. I
bantamweight.
love him, man.
Um, um, so that's going to take us to the main event, heavyweight championship fight. We got the interim champion Cyril Gane as the favorite, -153, undisputed champion Ngannou +133. Your turn to start this one off. What's your level of
Oh,
excitement
I'm
for this
looking
one?
forward to it. I mean, when you think of heavyweights, you think of big scary dudes like both of these guys, and you think of guys that can find a knockout, or in Cyril Gane's case, he's like a good a good showing of MMA as a really big guy who has a bunch of tools and knows how to use it. But and obviously the backstory between these two guys training together. I actually didn't know as much about it as I learned. I didn't know that it was like Francis was like fighting in the UFC, is like main eventing or whatever it is, and then he comes back and this fucking guy Cyril Gane's there, fucking kicking the bag or whatever, like a movie. And they're like, who the fuck is this guy? And then they start training together and whatever, and then that's when the beef starts because Francis is like, holy shit, like this guy's legit, and I know my trainer Fernand Lopez is gonna want to push him. So that animosity probably started right there, and then I do believe that Gon probably got the better of him more often, but Francis has continued to improve a bit. You saw a little bit of that wrestling last fight, but I just don't think that he is going to be able to catch. I mean, look, Francis can knock out a horse, all right? So he could definitely knock out Cyril Gane if he catches him early. But I do think with that bigger cage, Gane, he's able to switch hit from both stances, very patient, is comfortable in the fire as well, comes from a Muay Thai background where, you don't know what the guy's going to hit you with, a knee to the body, an elbow, whatever it is, where as Francis has made his money on just being able to detonate on dudes' chins. So I think when you're thinking about the in space, all the angles, and the dimensions of movement that Cyril Gane has, I do think that he's able to draw out some of those attacks of Francis, and then dance around them and potentially take this fight late, or land a big counter. I mean, I think that Gane is one of the best at moving off to a quick angle and then putting some damage on you. Kind of reminds me a little bit sometimes of like how Dustin Poirier does that too. He's moves around and then kind of just launches a all out attack at you. But yeah, I'm gonna be picking Cyril Gane here, and I think that he gets this win. But I wouldn't be surprised at seeing this fight go late, and that Gane decision line hitting as well.
Nice. So, this is clearly, a technician versus powerhouse type of fight. The path to victory for both guys seems pretty clear. And one thing I'll mention right off the bat is the size of the cage. So that you mentioned it, it's the big cage here. I think this is a real big factor because Ngannou's last fight against Stipe was in the small cage. That was why Ngannou, looked his all-time best. I don't think Stipe had as much room to be elusive, to evade, and Stipe just looked, spooked in that fight from the jump. I mean, he threw 8 strikes in round one. I mean, considering the pace of their first fight, I mean, the first fight was like legitimately one of the highest paced rounds in heavyweight history. And then the second fight, Stipe just, elected to do pretty much nothing. And then he let Ngannou get off in round two. He dropped him, and then he just started way too late, letting Ngannou, get the momentum there. And that's why Ngannou looked his all-time best. Now, this is in the big cage. That's definitely going to play into the advantage of Gane. He's going to have more room to be elusive, to evade. And don't forget, Gane's 3 of his past 4 fights, the junior fight, the Rosenstrike fight, and Volkov, all in the small cage. So you hear some people say that the Gane retreats linearly. He kind of moves back in a straight line, and that might be an issue. Well, a lot of his fight time, probably half his UFC fight time has been in the small cage. And when you see him against Derek Lewis in the big cage, much more comfortable in that big cage with all that room to move. So Ngannou is going to need that bum rush type of knockout. He's not going to, he's likely not going to knock Gane out at distance, at punching, kicking range. He's going to need to swarm him with those big, crazy combinations like he got Rosenstrike. Um, Now, Gane can't make the same mistake as Rosenstrike, throwing fucking inside leg kicks while retreating and trying to jab Ngannou. I mean, he needs to tie Ngannou up. He needs to get him against the cage. He needs to tire out those arms. And, Gane is really good at that. He, comes from a Muay Thai background. He's comfortable in the clinch. So Ngannou is going to rush. Cyril's going to tie him up. He's going to wear those arms out, throw some elbows and knees against the cage, and then he's going to separate back to distance. Ngannou probably has about 10 bursts in him before starting to really slow, before starting to run out of ideas. And then after 10 bursts, after the 10-minute mark, it's probably going to be all Cyril Gane. And then it becomes a question of, is Gane going to get a finish in rounds 3, 4, and 5, or is he going to go to the decision? And I am leaning Gane. I'm agreeing with Ozzy here that it's going to be Gane's fight. And all I'm really thinking about, though, is what does round 3, 4, and 5 look like? Is Ngannou gonna just accept getting, outpointed for 15 minutes and, just accept defeat? Is he gonna, go for broke and get knocked out himself? Or is he gonna kind of go with the Derek Lewis route where he just kind of gets confused, maybe a little flustered, takes a body shot, takes a knee, and the fight's over? So you seem to be leaning towards decision, right, Ozzy? That it's gonna go the full 5 for
Uh,
Cyril?
I don't know. I'm not that sure, but yeah, I'd probably say it's better value the decision.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. The value is on I mean, I think the
I'm
line
not
on
sure
game
though. I'm
knockout
not
is
sure
is
though. I
pretty
feel
insane.
like I think people have been trying to convince me of that more, but like I said, I think that there's gonna be multiple opportunities that Gon kind of moves off to an angle, especially when Francis is a little bit more tired, and then he starts to being able to link these combinations together, throw a kick in there, a knee, an elbow, multiple punches in a row. So I don't. I think
Yeah.
I'd probably lean knockout, honestly.
Yeah, because we haven't seen Gan lose, or excuse me, we haven't seen Ngannou lose rounds due to getting outstruck. He lost rounds to Lewis by staring at him. He lost rounds to Stipe getting out grappled, but he never has been just picked apart for 5 minutes. Who the hell knows what that's going to look like? I kind of lean towards him, you know, I guess you could say finding a way out of the fight. He's going to go for something crazy. If he doesn't get it, he's going to shell up to some combination from Gane, a body shot, something like that. And I'm thinking, yeah, 3, 4, 5 knockout for Gane of some sort. Um, and it should be really exciting, though. I mean, I think the line is just about right. I mean, I think Ngannou's floor is pretty much always around 40%, no matter who he's fighting. So this line is really accurate. I mean, Ngannou can only win by knockout. He certainly can't win rounds or a decision here. Gane has the much more versatile ways to win. One question I got for you, Ozzy: you think we're going to see any grappling in this fight?
I do think they'll lock up, and I mean, if it goes as long as I think it is, I do think that they'll lock up somewhat, and there'll be some clinching. Someone will try to take down. Yeah, I do think so.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that'll be interesting to see. We have seen Cyril look good on top. Ngannou, I think, might have hit some takedowns in his early UFC career, but hasn't in a while. So, I think a decent line here starts around 3 minus 120. It's pretty much similar to the over 2.5. Obviously, there is a good amount of risk for Ngannou to knock out early, but yeah, I think that's about it. One last question I'll pose to you is: Ngannou knockout round 1 or 2 is plus 190. Do you think that is better than his money line, or do you think you should just take money line?
No, I just play the money line because I could see if Gon's not being aggressive, like why does Francis like? I think this could be a very slow fight early on.
Yeah. So it sounds like we're in pretty much agreement with these title fights. We disagree on a few of these fights. Let's do our best bet parlay. Last week I picked Chookagian, Ozzy picked Court McGee. Pretty easy winner there. Both of them looked like huge hindsight favorites. So let's get our best bet of the weekend here. I think you mentioned yours earlier on. What is your
Yeah,
best bet
so
going to be? Think you're
yeah, so
thinking a
this is
prop, right?
we've done 6 of these. Each of us is 4-2 on these like best bets. 3-3 on like if you were to do the 2 team parlay. One time we didn't link up. So yeah, I'm gonna give just for something that's like close to even pick 'em odds. That over 2.5 in the Victor Henry versus Barcelos fight. I think that both guys are very competent everywhere. I don't think that Barcelos gets takedowns easily, and then when he does, I don't think that that submission or knockout is coming easily. And then same thing on the Victor Henry side. Barcelos, really durable guy, and I think that he should be able to. We should be able to see a decision there. But I like a bunch of the underdogs too, so that I mentioned. But I'll pick that one, and or the goes the distance, or
And
the goes the whichever one.
my best bet is going to be Cody Stamann money line. Combining those two we just mentioned on Bet Online, plus 162 for Stamann, plus 107 on the over 2.5. That comes out to plus 442 odds. So that's going to be our
I
best
like
bet.
that.
But like Ozzy said, we are 3 wins, 3 losses on these. I'm sure we're up at least like 2 or 3 units, probably maybe even 4 or 5, honestly. So um, that's going to do it for this podcast. A little over just about an hour and 15. I feel like that's a pretty good time. There's a lot of good fights, a lot to talk about on this card. So I think we did pretty good getting through this in a timely fashion. And any closing thoughts,
Nope.
Ozzy? Word. Well, thank you to everyone who listened. I don't think there's UFC next week, right? I think we have a week off after this, and then we get right
There's
back.
a
So
Bellator card.
thank you to everyone who listened. Nice, nice. Um, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Well, that's gonna do it for this podcast, though. Thank you to everyone who listened. Thank you everyone who support. Make sure you're liking, following, retweeting everything on Twitter, following the both of us, and checking out our Bet MMAs as well. So thanks to everyone who listened, and hope you all enjoy the fights and win some bets this weekend.